Hi there, welcome back to this last in our summer series of digital breakfast here at the Digital Tourism Think Tank. Today we are talking about selling on social. I'm Nick Hall, the founder of the Digital Tourism Think Tank.
I'm Ramona, the Programs Director of the Think Tank, and we're really pleased to be welcoming you again.
So, we have actually abandoned completely our idea of doing a summer series of digital breakfasts out and about around the beautiful Garden of England in Kent, in the southeast of England. Unfortunately, the weather is just not reliable enough. So far, I think throughout the whole summer, we've had maybe one day of good weather, and the rest has been really bad. So it's a bit of a shame. But we're really pleased actually to welcome you to our brand spanking new office space, which is at International House in Ashford. And as you can see, we're in this lovely orange pod. This is one of our thinking pods. And today we are going to be doing a lot of thinking about where social is going. So I guess without any further ado, let's really kick off and see, where does this all come from? We had the idea to have a selling on social topic right at the beginning of the series. But Ramona, tell us a little bit about why we had this idea. Where did it come from?
Well, I think it really started with Pinterest introducing the buy button, and then I think it really clicked for us that, of course, we had seen Twitter has a buy now button already, Facebook as well has moved into that space, Instagram as well. So we definitely saw that there was a move of all of the social media channels really to selling travel and selling also business products or general products and services online. So we thought it would be quite interesting also to look at it, not necessarily with an expert hat on, because we're not necessarily experts in that field, but because we know the industry quite well, to really look at sort of what is the impact of this? Does it make sense? Has this happened before? And all of these things.
Yeah, so I mean, with the rise of the buy now button, I mean, it got a lot of attention for something which is actually very, very small, but I think what would be useful is to sort of look at, what the significance of that is for travel, and also try and understand a little bit about where things might be going. So there is now this buy now button that's starting to appear on certain Pinterest boards. They are working with different sales outlets to actually effectively commercialize pins. I guess probably it's worth a quick explanation. If you don't know about Pinterest, it has been known as one of the most successful social networking sites in terms of the conversion that it brings through for sort of products through to company websites. So I think this addition of this buy now button simply allows you to buy something that you're interested rather than just share it.
Yeah, and I mean, technically, everybody would use Pinterest to actually create different boards. So maybe like a travel board, a wedding board, a fashion board, a gardening board, a baking board. So you have all of these ideas.
Baking board, I like that.
Recipes. But then, of course, for travel, you put all of these nice places, nice hotels, great experiences all on a board, because that's what you want to, that's where you want to go for your next holiday. So I think your purchase intent is probably the highest, whereas maybe on Instagram it's more sort of about dreaming and being inspired and sort of almost sort of sharing more your experiences and tapping into maybe retailers and maybe also some travel companies and looking at the sponsored posts. But I think for Pinterest we can see there's sort of more clear purchase intent.
So I think, I think that's a really good point, because Pinterest is really about gathering things. And as we know, all the research points to the fact that in that travel cycle, consumers like to gather all of their ideas. They research hundreds of different sites. They pull them all together. And eventually, that's how they reach a decision. So Google have done much research about how many searches people do. And we can see now things like Pinterest allowing people to pull them all together. So this is quite a significant thing. I think, though, it's not all about Pinterest. I think what we really want to get to the bottom of is how social is changing and becoming maybe more commercial than it has done in the past.
Yeah, the bigger picture, I guess, because a lot of these social media channels that have the buy now buttons, they always create these nice videos where sort of it's a family maybe who gathered around their iPad looking at sort of their camping holiday and the board that they've put together, and then we looked at a video the other day where they then sit down and they buy some boots, they buy, I don't know, some rain jackets because the weather might not be that nice, and sort of this lifestyle of, hey, I'll just browse and I'll buy something there and then because I'm hungry, it's raining, these sort of things on mobile devices as well.
Yeah. Now, speaking of social, before we get into some of the ideas that we've been looking at, it's probably worth saying that if you do want to tweet us your ideas or sites that you've seen or some really interesting examples, definitely use the hashtag Digital Breakfast and send it to think_tourism. We have actually somebody behind the scenes getting back to everybody on all of those, so we really look forward to your comments and your suggestions. But we've actually put together quite a few ideas, so let's have a look at some of them. I guess what's really interesting to look at is how travel is changing and how our sort of habits are changing pretty quickly. I thought I would put together here an example of what has now become a normal travel experience for me. Of course, we all know Airbnb. It's created a lot of controversy in the travel industry. But this is an example. This is actually where I slept last night. So I stayed in a lovely room provided by a French and an Irish couple who've got a recently new home. And this is how things are changing. What's significant here, of course, is that this is a completely different way of actually browsing travel experiences and deciding to book them. And it's all about authority. It's all about users being able to share their opinions. So if we look here, you have lots and lots of properties which have been shared by different people and they have different star ratings. Actually, this one itself has no star ratings because I was the first. So I like to think that I am not shy at all to sort of try new things.
Well, it's all about the people, isn't it? When you look for an Airbnb property, you always look at, what other people are saying. And if they say, the host is really nice, they will bring you milk. If you're gluten intolerant, they will bring you food and stuff.
Exactly.
As they did.
And that's exactly what happened, actually. So I have to say my experience of staying at this place was wonderful because I mentioned very lightly, well, I have actually gluten intolerance, so don't worry too much. Don't put yourselves out. But just so you know, I might not have breakfast. And because we're dealing with real people who actually really care about being hospitable, they go out and they get that. Now, I would love to see a hotel do that. It has happened, but hotels don't treat their guests with anything like that sort of personal level of experience.
Yeah, it's not as personal because the people that run a hotel don't live there, so it's not. Then it might not be that passionate, maybe about sort of connecting with individuals. But I guess Airbnb is really all about meeting people all around the globe and also getting to know them and seeing sort of what they're passionate about. Because you always end up having a chat over a coffee with them, so that's quite a nice.
In fact, I was actually late this morning because I was having a nice chat, and it's sometimes difficult to be a sort of cold business traveler that sort of goes in and out. Yeah. But I guess this is how things are changing, and this is certainly changing because of the rise of social commerce. There's two obviously notable examples, which I don't think we actually need to talk too much about on this breakfast, because I guess all of you guys watching this from your desks or wherever you are surely familiar with these. But Airbnb and Uber have been the game changers, I would say, of the industry. They are the two players which have shaken, they've almost come with a sort of earthquake effect to the travel industry, where actually the traditional legacy players have woken up and they said, hang on a minute, this is really impacting our bottom line. Airbnb, for example, is now the world's largest accommodation provider. Out of absolutely nothing, it's risen up and it's become the largest accommodation provider. And they don't own any property. They don't build any hotels. They don't develop product in the traditional sense. Uber as well. It's a very different ballgame altogether. So, I mean, this is how things are really changing. And I thought, let's have maybe a look at sort of what's behind that, and sort of maybe step back a bit. Because when we talk about selling on social, we're thinking the buy now button. Does this mean that everything we do on social media will have a buy now button? And in my opinion, at least, I don't think that's the case, and I don't think selling on social is as black and white as that. So I picked one of my favorite sites, and I think it's worth saying it's not just my favorite site. There are millions of people who are loving the change that they're seeing right now. And for most consumers, they perhaps don't even see that immediate kind of rise of a completely new wave of buying experiences. But here's an example of just one page from a website called Take It Easy. So I really like the name, Take It Easy. There's actually, got a sort of French twist. So if you say it with a French accent, it's Take It Easy in English. And actually, it's really funny because it's a Belgian site for Brussels. And they actually send couriers to cycle round to the restaurants, collect your food, then take it to your home. What's really this is that it's
Is that correct?
exactly.
Engaging with them in a different way.
I would say it's sort of participative ordering because you participate with other people's opinions. You also meet your courier, so they actually put the faces of the delivery drivers there. And actually, you can see them travel, you can see them go to pick it up, you can see them on the map come and get it. And whenever I order, I'm at the door before they've pressed the buzzer, and it's really fun. And I have to say, it's actually addictive. You go back and back and back, and you buy again. So, I mean, this is really a big change. But what I put here for you to see on the screen is just one simple dish, which is from a restaurant where they go and get the food. The reason I think this is significant is because in the past we didn't have any reviews of sites other than official, authentic reviews. Of course, Michelin Guide still has a lot of authority, but this has now moved to restaurant review sites. Then we develop restaurant reviews. That's still great. You review the whole restaurant. But now we see this sort of granular drilling down to a product level where it's not just about the restaurant, it's actually about the single dish you order. So I would love to see a restaurant where you go in and you don't know what to order on the menu, but you can see the ratings of the different dishes on the menu. That's a good reason, actually, to do a digital tablet menu, because then you can have social authenticity integrated within your menu.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good tip for anyone who's watching that.
I think whenever we or I order takeaway, the most difficult thing is you can only see sort of the takeaway company, their ratings, if they're 3-star. But I think especially for certain dishes, I really want to know, is it super spicy or can I handle it? So sometimes it's really useful if somebody says, oh, it really tastes nice, or if you want something lighter, this is something for you. I'm on a diet, you should go for that, or something like that, because it's really helpful as well.
And as we can see here, I mean, the example here, it's one dish, and they say it was much better than the filled meatballs. Still not sure it's worth the price. For that price, I'd put 2. That's absolutely fine, and this is where things are going. So in many respects, there's very little difference here between this and Airbnb, but there is a big difference because this is still an official restaurant providing it. So if you look at this, you see the lines really blurring. This is not simple as, oh, this is unofficial providers now selling stuff. This is a general trend where even official providers need to adapt to what consumers want. And this is an example of actually restaurants being able to have success by adopting many of the principles that Airbnb has. But that doesn't mean that they lose their business to individuals who are not even professionals.
I think it just means that a small player or new business can come into the space and really add value and really innovate, and that can really add value to the overall experience. And it can also mean that for a consumer, it's interesting to actually not just eat in a Michelin star restaurant, but every now and again also maybe get a takeaway like that, because it's something different to the norm.
I have to say, Ramona, I think I'm going to open a restaurant because I'm inspired now to do a social menu.
Well, I think our colleague Ilaria is, I think, a really good cook. I mean, we're always thinking that she should cook lunch for us.
Well, I tell you what,
because it's really nice.
We share a space with lots of tech and development companies, so maybe we can put a small menu for Ilaria up and actually have people rating it. And I'm sure there'll all be positive ratings. Here's another example I found, Menu Next Door. This was one I really loved because actually it started off as a Facebook group. It had a lot of controversy before it was even an official website, with restaurateurs trying to shut it down, because actually they allow you to cook your own dish for an evening, to schedule it, to say, next week I'm doing spaghetti bolognese. I think they're more advanced than that. And then invite people to come and collect takeaway boxes that you prepared for them. It's absolutely brilliant.
I think especially in Brussels, because I think whenever I was there, I mean, the cuisine is inspired by so many different, it's influenced by so many different sort of countries and people who have come to Belgium, who have come to Brussels and now live there. So it's really nice sort of exploring all sorts of different food. I think I have to say that Brussels is actually leading there. It's quite surprising because you would think, okay, London would definitely be something like that. Berlin would definitely be sort of at the cutting edge of things, but I haven't really come across any of that.
I think there's a sort of a very underground tech revolution happening in a very bureaucratic city, and I think the reason for that is there is genuine, good quality experience, especially in the food industry. And there's some really creative Belgian companies which are developing things like this. So I think we will see lots more things like this coming. But this, I've already decided what I'm ordering next Saturday. And this is going to be, a first for me. And I think it's something that I'll be doing regularly. It's more authentic. You can trust. For me, it's almost easier to trust another individual than a restaurant, because restaurants have techniques. They put maybe a lot of oil or a lot of salt in, things like that. People cook from the heart, so that's quite different. So I thought that was an example. But let's get right back to the main topic that we were talking about, selling on social. So what does that mean? But we started looking at the buy now button. Well, in actual fact, selling on social has been around. It is around. And this is just a good example. Unfortunately, not a travel industry example. There's not so many of those.
But we have seen quite a few, I think, destinations sort of moving into that space, and I could certainly imagine that sort of the likes of Visit Oslo or Ljubljana Tourism, who already sell tickets online, sell experiences on their websites. I mean, for them, this is definitely sort of something natural to go for. However, what sort of traffic or what sort of purchases they see out of that's probably is something completely different than to look at.
I mean, putting your products and targeting relevant, interested people in the right context and place is something that you have been able to do for the last couple of years. You can create these are ads where you can create a card effectively, and you can add a buy now button, or you can change that to book now or reserve now, or find out more information. So this is something that's here, and really it's up to you as a marketeer to decide whether that social channel is the right place to promote your product, whether it's also the right stage for your customers to make a purchase decision, or whether they simply want to still build awareness at that stage. But I thought it's probably worth maybe reiterating that it's not completely new. And then I thought, well, we talked a lot about social commerce, so let's maybe give a bit of a thought to where that's going and where it might be heading in the future. So far, we've spoken about very personal experiences, exchanging things, meeting people. There's that social media aspect has been very, very strong in the examples that we've discussed. If you like, they take social experiences and they move them into a purchase social experience. I think what we will see more of is, sites like Airbnb evolving and new players coming on the scene, which compete. And I think the travel players of this watching this won't like to hear this, but competing much, much more aggressively and directly with the regular businesses that are selling travel. So here we have Airbnb for business, and they're actively moving into this field. Now, until now, I would say Airbnb was more or less mostly a personal thing that people do. But now we see that evolving, and business travel becoming more and more something that people do on a day-to-day business, and they still want to have these experiences, because there's also a lot of companies which also embrace this way of thinking. So this, in my opinion, really challenges the traditional concept of going on a business trip, staying in a hotel, checking in and checking out. If we start to see other individuals sort of understanding what those customers want, then we can even see that, the sort of core business of hotels being really challenged. And that's not to say that this, that this is a good or a bad thing. I think it's important that the travel industry completely understands what's happening, and instead of trying to fight it, because there will be millions of other sites propping up in the future, and this is what people want. That's why they're successful. It's important to try and jump on that trend. And unfortunately, sometimes these sort of things are so disruptive that you have to rethink and change everything that you're doing. we have actually been working on this. We've been developing a whole digital transformation model, which we will show you in future programs. But I mean, this is certainly an unstoppable trend. So let's have a look at maybe a couple more examples that I think illustrate what's going on here. Again, another one where you can basically eat with people. You can go around and stay at their homes. This is something that so far is really been more targeted towards individuals who just love this thing. But I think we can really see opportunities here for tourism to say, well, actually we have people in our destination who are really passionate about the local cuisine, about what they can cook, or even the multicultural cuisine and what the multicultural aspects of the destination have to offer.
I think last year when we had our innovation campus in Barcelona, I do remember that quite a lot of the ladies from the Flemish cities, I think they all joined, and we said, oh, where are you going? And they said, oh, we're going to this really amazing couple who will cook for us very traditional sort of Catalonian food. And they went there and they said it was absolutely fabulous. That I think it was not necessarily that much about the food, but more about the stories that I think the host had to tell and sort of how they entertained the guests. So they literally went there into their home and just had sort of a 3 or 4 course meal.
Yeah, exactly. And here we can see the same concept and people reviewing it. So you can quickly filter out the good from the bad and really sort of see what you should go for. So I think that's a big trend. Another one I found, also looking locally where we're based, because I thought that would be interesting, people renting out driveways. There's another one called Holly Dog, where people can give their dog and look after someone else's dog. And I'm loving all this. And I think this is just a massive, massive change that we can see. So let's go back to what we were discussing before. What's the impact on how we purchase in the travel industry? And go right back to Pinterest. For me, the big and a very significant change is that everything is evolving, technology is evolving, and we see that buying on Pinterest right now is limited to mobile devices, and it's US and Canada. And what's really key here is it's not just about social media evolving. It's not just about social media selling. It's also about payments developing and evolving. And the whole payment industry is being shaken up. So we have Apple Pay becoming very successful, and we'll see them in more places in the coming years.
I think Samsung Pay was launched, last week in the UK, so that's also coming. So I think last week I said, I'm just wondering how many more stickers they can put, next to sort of payment options we accept. Samsung, Apple, I don't know, maybe the next thing is like Nokia is coming up, or some completely different player.
Exactly. If you look at, Pinterest, in fact, what clicked for me when we were preparing this is that it is not so different to Etsy or to Airbnb or to any other site. In fact, we've always been talking about Pinterest as a social media platform simply because they didn't sell. But in all reality, it was a store that hadn't put the cash register in yet. And all they have actually done is now starting to monetize this. If you like, they've gone in through the back door because they've built a community before trying to sell to that community.
But in a way, a natural development for business as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And they've also realized that the payments, the evolution of the payments industry is something that when it's right, it's right. And people can now buy on their phone without entering any card details. The purchase process is ultra simple. What does this mean for travel? It means that when people are traveling in a new destination, that they can purchase on their phone without having to worry about currency, without having to even think about it, without having to go through complicated processes. And actually, from all the examples we've seen where this is not necessarily Kent-based people in this area who are selling, they're actually transacting with a global community. The idea of borders and geography and currency has completely been eroded. So for me, this is what the new social way of selling really means. And to look at, what's probably the most significant thing on the horizon, Richard Branson has been very open and proud about investing in Bitcoin. A lot of people are saying, what on earth is Bitcoin? Well, it's an internet currency. and it's a complete sort of challenger to the US dollar, in my opinion, which has been the global currency, especially in countries which have weak currency markets. They often use the dollar instead. Bitcoin is now an internet currency. It's becoming more and more popular. And actually, I think we're going to see traditional currencies slowly going away. And certainly, coins and notes will be going away very quickly. But I think we'll increasingly see different currencies which meet different people's preferences. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years you will travel to a place and you'll use your own internet currency that you like, just like you use your own social channel which you like. And these are not different to the ones you use at home. So I think the world is really becoming a global village now with these challenges, with these changes. And I think, in my opinion, that's a very exciting development. We can see already that Expedia have already started to embrace this. Here's an example of paying with your Bitcoin. It says you're connecting to Coinbase now, and it takes you through to that payment page. So this is not a fad. This is not something I think that's going to just go away. This is something which might not end up being Bitcoin as the leader, but I think it will certainly represent a completely new wave. And of course, even investment and loans, we see people lending money to each other now. So we've only got a few minutes left. We are going right up to our normal 30 minutes. We've got just a couple of minutes, but we did look at some big questions, and I think this is definitely worth discussing. So first of all, how do you think destinations should react to all these developments and changes?
Well, I think, it's already happening, and it's already part of sort of the natural sort of marketing mix that consumers want to go for. So I think rather than sort of, appealing against it or saying we don't want to work with them, what would be good is actually to encourage innovation in your destination, to encourage innovation amongst the businesses that are there, and really also see that as sort of added value to the overall experience that a visitor has. So I think it's probably good for a lot of destinations to actually maybe open their eyes, because my guess is that, for example, Visit Brussels might not be aware of that. They might not have that on a destination website. They don't necessarily have to, but I think sort of being aware of that and maybe showcasing that as a different aspect of the destination might actually be quite interesting.
Certainly, yeah. And one of the questions we were discussing is, will future travel leaders of this world be tech companies? I think what we can see...
I think you have a strong opinion about this, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can see that travel companies build hotels, they build services, they build their product, and then they build a channel or a platform to sell it. And the internet has changed where they sell it, but now we see what they sell being a big game changer. I think we will obviously still see travel companies and companies which are really excellent at what they do, but I think the big change will be that tech companies will increasingly become the travel leaders of this world, because they will, rather than focus on building a product, they will look at what product already exists or what product could exist if you just allow people to embrace and create, and they'll actually bring it out. And I think certainly guiding in cities, personalized guides, is something which there are some examples, but it's really at the very early stages. I think we're just waiting for that sort of genius, sort of unicorn company to really build up, and then we will see something really, really successful coming. So I think definitely the future very successful travel companies will absolutely be tech companies which understand the traveler. That's a big game changer. I think, what this means is that when we talk about what this means for travel, I don't think that travel providers should rush to become tech companies. That's not their expertise. That's not something they do. I think they need to really look at their product and look at how they interact with their customers and look at how they embrace this and look at how they sell and try and incorporate these big changes within what they do. And that's where they're going to be successful. So I guess to answer the question whether they would become defunct, maybe. I think probably, yeah. Sorry, if you were thinking I was going to say no, you may well be irrelevant. And, it's a reality that, there's a big shift taking place right now. And I think if you don't actually embrace these changes, if you don't understand why those people are using those sites, why those sites are rising in popularity at an unstoppable rate, then you're never going to be able to interact and provide your customers with what they want. And your market is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. It might happen over 20 years, but it will eventually go completely, because there's a new generation growing up. The millennials today expect this, they want this. And that generation is going to grow older, and eventually your traditional market is only going to be interested in this. So I think there is a real risk of the industry as we know it becoming defunct. And I think if they don't listen to that warning, they will become irrelevant. And it's a real message to completely refocus your product and reinvest in that, and to take a step back and ask if you're at a risk of that. Because the other thing is that a lot of travel businesses won't see that happening. It will just happen very, very slowly over a period of time. So I guess readying yourselves for the future of social selling. Any thoughts or tips there?
Well, I would say just to keep an open mind. I think, it's always worth just having a browse and just looking at what's out there. Because if you think that, it's not already out there, you're probably mistaken, because you will find it somewhere. Because there's always somebody who has already done it, maybe in a different way. So I think sort of be open-minded, look what's out there. And then with anything, I'm a great believer in strategy. So really looking at opportunities and really thinking about it in a strategic way to really see if there's a real opportunity for the business, it can really help or add value. And if the answer is no to that, and if it doesn't really make business sense, then you should definitely not think about it.
Yeah, okay, that's a good advice there. So we're out of time, but thanks very much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the few examples that we pulled together in the short time we had. It was certainly a really interesting discussion. I think this is one that we held back to the end of the series. We wanted to see if Pinterest would do anything more. They haven't. But I think we can certainly see big changes here. Well, we're going to leave you with a video which tells you all about the Digital Tourism Innovation Campus. Time is now running out, so you must register as soon as possible. We have an absolutely amazing lineup of speakers for that. And the focus of the whole event will be about destination transformation. And we're going to take you through all of the big stages of destination transformation, from getting yourselves ready to transforming your business to succeeding online. So this is, I think, this is a really impactful event, and it will help you to really get to grips with all of that. We're actually going to be back, and we're going to be streaming live from International House here in Ashford in Kent for most of our future streams. And the summer series is now over, so we have to shed a tear and hope that we have some September sunshine.
Yeah.
But that means that our future streams will not be breakfasts. They will be more like brunches or lunches. And we'll be publishing a new schedule very shortly, but expect us to be back on air in a couple of weeks from now, where we're going to be talking about some of the bigger topics, such as transformation, how to get the most out of the Thinkathon that's coming up, and all sorts of other exciting activities. Yeah. So we'll be publishing that very shortly. Thanks very much for joining us, and keep in touch and drop us a mail.
For me, I can say I am doing great. I'm among the kindred spirits here, and I'm presenting the thing that I love.
I've learned a lot. I learned last night on the dance floor that all Scandinavians are crazy.
Web development has to be an ongoing process. You're never done, and I guess that's what makes it so fun.
So I'd also like to start with thanking our Nordic neighbors. I think they arrived a little bit late to the Northern Lights party.
It's really interesting, and one of the reasons you come to a conference is to understand how are other people's sites performing, how are other people's mobile performing.